I know you've heard this a lot today, but want to welcome you again to the 2024 PA Conference. We're really thrilled to have you all here. Really enjoy seeing familiar faces and meeting some new people as well, so thank you all for being here. For those who I haven't had a chance to meet before, my name is Rebecca Russ. I'm the Grassroots Advocacy Specialist at IDF, so I work within the Public Policy Department at the Foundation. So I will be moderating today's session and really excited to have our speakers here. Before we go ahead and get started, just a reminder, this is a 45-minute session, which we're going to stick to that time frame. It's going to be more of a kind of discussion here, so we might be posing some questions to you throughout, and we'll come around with a mic when that happens. But just a quick disclaimer that the information that's discussed during this session is not medical advice, nor is it intended to be a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. So just a reminder that if you have any questions about your condition or your health, you always want to seek out your physician or a qualified health provider with questions like that. Additionally, as with all of our education events, we just like to mention that the views and opinions expressed by guest speakers do not necessarily represent the views and opinions of IDF. So just a quick disclaimer before we get in here. And with that, I want to introduce our two awesome speakers here. First, we have Jacqueline Child. Her life was forever changed when she became disabled after being diagnosed with chronic illnesses when she was a teenager. And one of the challenges that she faced was dating and, figuring out when to disclose her conditions, finding someone who understood the challenges that having a rare or chronic disease entails. And so she didn't really find a space for this, and she couldn't really find an environment to date and feel comfortable doing so. So she teamed up with her sister Alexa to create a dating app called Dateability, where there was kind of this safe space for individuals who face these kind of challenges to date and feel open to talking about their condition with potential partners. So really excited to have her here. And then we also have Alexa. She is a public interest attorney. And as I said, she paired up with her sister to create this app to really help solve these issues of dating when you have a chronic illness. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to them. And as I said, we'll have a discussion kind of throughout. So really looking forward to it. And let's give them a round of applause. Thank you for being here.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having us and coming to talk about love and lymphocytes. As Rebecca said, I am Jacqueline, and to do a visual description, I am a white woman, I am a brunette, I have brown eyes, and I'm wearing a gray sweater with Dateability embroidered on it, actually that our mom made. And I'm Alexa, I'm Jacqueline's older sister. I am a white woman, I have brown hair, brown eyes, and I am wearing a dark gray sweater embroidered with Dateability on it as well. So how many of you have ever used online dating or know someone who has used online dating? Yeah, like everybody, because it is now the norm, and it's a new way of meeting people, and I know a lot of people have met on dating apps, and it can be much easier and much more accessible if there's the right platform, which Jacqueline knows all about. So back in 2009, I would say, I became chronically ill due to a viral infection, like so many people have, I'm sure, at this conference and are getting recently. And my life was forever changed, and that was really difficult for me, and I really had to adapt socially. And then once I graduated college, I moved in with my sister, and we were living in Colorado. And in Colorado, everyone is obsessed with finding an adventure buddy. And if you don't hike, if you don't climb, you're out. They can just swipe to the next person. And so I was rejected a lot. I really experimented with disclosure and waiting or disclosing right away. And things just never ended well, honestly. People would tell me I was a burden, or their families would warn someone not to date someone with complex medical issues. And that was really difficult. And as you see in this screenshot from a well-known dating app, someone told me that I should not have biological children because I could pass down my genetics. This is without knowing anything about my genetics or my chronic illnesses. And this happens far too often. We hear stories of people saying, they match with someone immediately, and if they have a visible disability, they'll say, can you even have sex? Or like, can I even talk to you in person? And this problem is far too rampant. Some about my diagnoses. I have common variable immunodeficiency. I also have gastroparesis, lupus, RA, Ehlers-Danlos, dysautonomia, all of those comorbid diagnoses that a lot of people here experience. And although I had gastroparesis since 2009, I had to get a feeding tube in the fall of 2021, and that absolutely freaked me out. I couldn't imagine having to explain that to people. Prior to this, I was going to dinner or drinks or coffee as a first date, and now what was I going to say? No, we can just sit on a bench and talk. I honestly freaked out, and Alexa did too. And I had reiterated that I just wish there was a place for people like me to meet, because I always felt that someone else who was chronically ill would understand me, and that I wouldn't have that anxiety of having to always talk about my chronic illnesses or hide myself or even make it that all about me. And so I had reiterated that to Alexa, and she suggested that we create our own platform, and that's exactly what we did. I saw what my sister was going through, and it broke my heart, and I'm a lawyer, which means we can either create problems or solve problems, and I decided to be in the latter camp and solve a problem that I saw happening. And I wanted to create this safe and inclusive space for people like Jacqueline, but also non-disabled people can join, allies, advocates, people like me. It's a really great way of filtering out, the people who would discriminate. And so we started creating Dateability from Jacqueline's hospital room after she got her feeding tube, and we launched October 2022. We have no prior technical experience or really no prior entrepreneurial experience either, but this is something that we were deeply devoted to, and with the help of technical engineers, we were able to bring our vision to life. But back to dating, I would like to hear from you guys some of your best and worst dating experiences. As Jacqueline said, I think her worst one is probably when the guy told her not to have children without even really knowing anything about her. Does anyone want to share anything about what dating's like with a chronic illness for you all? And it can be good too, because we know that there are some winners out there, of course. And I will say, I've seen some offensive comments on the apps, but also people are not afraid to tell it to your face as well. It can be really difficult to disclose to someone that you have a chronic illness, and I felt like I always had to hide myself when personally I see myself as much more than being disabled, but I know that my disability has affected every part of my life, and I'm also proud of that. And so it has been really hard, and we'd love to hear some of your dating experiences if you're comfortable sharing.
You can just raise your hand and I'll bring a mic over.
It's not so much a dating experience, but I came in here because dating is going to be like down a little bit down the road for me. But I'm going through a divorce, and I don't really know how to handle it because my soon-to-be ex-husband has told me that nobody's going to love me once they hear that I have CVID, because nobody loves a sick person.
Yeah.
So
that's not true. So I'm sorry that he's telling you that. Sounds like he's your ex-husband for a reason. I'll just say that, but no. Yeah, I will say, of course, like we can all say that that's not true, but when you hear it, you believe it, and I completely believed everything that these people were telling me. My self-esteem was really, really low for so many years. I worked through it with a therapist about how to love myself and accept that love, because I also felt like I didn't want to put my illness on to anyone else, and that was a really difficult thing because, I mean, like I was very ashamed, and the internalized ableism was going crazy in my head. And with therapy, my therapist had just asked me, she said, like, what are some qualities that you have? And I said, I'm funny, I'm caring, I'm compassionate. And she said, well, then someone is going to love you for that. And they're not going to care about your chronic illness, and they're going to love you for your chronic illness. And I really believe that. And really the proof is in the pudding with Dateability, because and we'll get this in the latter of the presentation, but we have a lot of success stories. And so Dateability is a great place to, when you're ready to get back out there, to hop on there, because I think that despite what your ex is saying, you're very lovable. Is there anyone else who would like to? Okay.
It was years ago, excuse me, before I was diagnosed, and I was sick all the time. And I had met someone who traveled a lot, so we didn't see each other often. And somehow we managed to always get together when I was not sick. And so when he finally stopped traveling and we started dating more traditionally, I was sick all the time. One day it was, I'm really sick of this. I am certainly not going to marry you at all until you get healthier, because you're just sick too much. Needless to say, we were not together much longer after that, because I kept on getting sick. And this is about 10, 11 years before I was finally diagnosed. So it probably wouldn't have lasted anyway. But yeah, I'm not going to marry you because you're too sick.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. We hear that a lot, and it's really, really short-sighted. Something that we like to tell everyone, and it's everyone in this room knows this, but a lot of non-disabled and non-chronically ill people don't realize is that you can become chronically ill at any time, and if you are lucky enough to live long enough, like you're going to become disabled, and you're going to have chronic illness, and so it's really unfortunate, but they're in for a rude awakening.
I can't speak what it's like to date with a chronic condition, because the last relationship I had was during the time that I was being diagnosed or going through the diagnosis. It was a very long diagnosis process. And just comment that you're a hypochondriac, you're always going to the doctor, and minimizing.
That can be hard. I know, as somebody from the outside looking at Jacqueline, she has such a dynamic disability, and so some days are good and some days are bad. And some days we're from Colorado, so some days we can go skiing together, and other days no. And I'm always afraid that on the days that we do go skiing, if we post about it on social media, someone's going to be like, well, then you're not really disabled, because people either it's black or white to so many people who are unfamiliar, and that is really hard. And I'm sorry that they told you that, but I know we can both relate.
Hi, I'm Tanner. I'm 24 years old. I was diagnosed with CVID at 4. Dating, like most things in my life, I try to keep it as normal as possible. Definitely dating in high school, I didn't disclose my illness with anybody because, in high school, you definitely don't want to tell somebody you're immunocompromised, because the first thing they're going to say is, oh my God, you have AIDS, or, it's going to be a joking matter or something like that. So I definitely didn't disclose it. I started disclosing it recently, just because I'm starting my career, so I'm starting to work a lot more, 40 hours a week, and it definitely puts a burden on your body, especially dealing with the conditions we deal with. We are extremely tired, especially after long days at work, throughout the work week. So a lot of times when you're young, people want to go out and party all the time. Friday, Saturday night, let's go drinks. So I usually I would try to push through it, but recently, since I'm starting my career, it's like I have to re-energize for Monday, so I'm going to show up to work, be the best I can be. So I really haven't had any really bad experiences, thank God, because dating is already hard enough with just normal people. So dating with chronic condition makes it that much harder. So But the biggest thing is, especially for young people in this room, just treat dating, like anything else that, you're going with. Just treat it as normal as possible. People are going to have their own opinion of you regardless of if they're dating you or if you're not dating them too. So, like they said, when the right person comes along, she or he will, bring you into their life regardless of if you're sick or not. So.
Absolutely, and that brings us to the solution. That's a really good segue. Before creating Dateability, I was on Hinge and Bumble, and honestly, I found, and I'm not disabled, but I found that it was oversaturated. There were too many people, and I would become like, the algorithm would show me people that I was very clearly not going to be compatible with, and I would feel so defeated after like 10 swipes. I'm like, I got to get off this thing. And so I'm, really starting to believe, and Dateability has helped further this hypothesis, improve this hypothesis, that niche dating apps are the future. We don't have to have 8 million users on there for you to find your person. Like, that is like finding a needle in a haystack. We have 21,000 users, and we have several success stories already. So, I never even went on a second date with anyone I met on the other dating apps. And so I think that there's proof in the pudding that these kinds of apps are working. And I use niche because that's the word we get all the time, even though we try to say being disabled is not a niche population. It's the world's largest minority. I've started trying to use community specific. I think that might be better because I don't believe that disability is a niche population. But our solution to the problem, beyond creating a dating app that is for disabled and chronically ill people and the allies and advocates, was targeting that problem of disclosure that Jacqueline talked about. And so we came up with the Dateability Deets section. We wanted to make it sound kind of neutral, fun, and not medical, not sterile. And it's in its broad list of terms like wheelchair user, immunocompromised, food allergy, and you can check off what applies to you. There is a type-in option. It's completely optional, and it doesn't contain any diagnoses. We didn't want to get into that area of privacy and medical history, but it's just a really nice, neutral way to disclose what your situation is. So if I was on there and I saw Jacqueline's profile, I would see that she has chronic pain and chronic fatigue, so I'm not going to ask her to go rock climbing with me on the first date. And it kind of avoids those conversations as well, where Jacqueline might feel uncomfortable sharing too much information too soon. And so it's a really nice way of creating understanding and neutrality and combating that issue of disclosure.
Yeah, personally, I am not one to often disclose that I'm chronically ill at all, and so this is like a really nice step for me personally, and I can put this on my profile without like having to quote unquote like scare someone with all these diagnoses, and I can just like say like, this is about me. You'll get to learn that information about me and what really my nitty-gritty day-to-day stuff looks like once that trust is earned. And we have some cool features on the app, and one is, of course, profile verification, because safety is of utmost importance, and it's an optional profile verification, and we make it as accessible as possible with also offering different methods of verification, and all those people who apply, they get a little yellow badge to prove that they are not catfishing someone. And we also have image descriptions, which is a really fun and unique feature on Dateability, and that is perfect for those with executive functioning disorders or sensory disorders, or those who are visually impaired and blind. And that's important. Of course, it's up to the users to enter, but we really encourage people to upload their image descriptions. And lastly, we know how important virtual companionship is, and so we made an optional location function. So you can search for people who are near, and you can search for people who are far. And we thought that was really important, especially, we launched in October of 2022, when a lot of people are still isolating, and so we really wanted to allow our community to meet people no matter where they are. And the last thing we wanted someone to do was to sign up and not see anybody on the app. So we solved that problem.
And the location function is interesting because the other apps make you pay for that to see people in other cities. And I know, I'm a Colorado girl through and through, but my person is definitely not in Colorado. I know that. And so this is a feature that is great because I can see people in Seattle, New York,
San Diego, wherever, and we've had several success stories start out as like a long-distance virtual companionship. I think it's safer, it can be more accessible, less pressure, and I think like there was something about the beginning of the pandemic with these virtual dates and really getting to know someone and not having to like rush into things, and I really liked that aspect of it, and so that's something that this location function and our smaller user base kind of fosters. All right, so to get a match on any dating app, you have to have a dateable profile, and we think that, you know, we're the right ones to give that advice because we see all of the profiles coming in, and we're able to see, you know, who has the most success. And so the first order of business is the pictures, and you know, we try to say that our community and the world should be less shallow, but unfortunately, it is what it is. And so, pictures. Show your face and have a good selfie. Like, studies show that portrait photos get so many more swipes than selfies, like this type of selfie. And we want everyone to have the most success. It's also really important to tell a story with your photos. So showing your hobbies, your interests, making sure that you don't have many photos with friends, because it's always, you know, when you're swiping and you're like, okay, which one are you? That's no fun and takes too much effort. No sunglass pics if you can help it, or at least limit it to one sunglass pic. You'll see here that is me, so we're not putting anyone but myself on blast. We see some pictures like that on the dating apps, and I advise against it. I don't know many people who would swipe on that. And then also food pics. We don't need to see what you're cooking unless you would like to show yourself off with it. I also love to include what I like to do in my hobbies, and so there's a picture of me skiing and a picture of me traveling, and of course with the image descriptions as well. It's great to be specific on the dating apps. Writing what you want in an ideal match, it's better than being vague and saying, hey, swipe right. And so I like to, that's a bad example of what a profile could be, but this is a good one. And it's really important to just tell people what you're looking for, and try to be more positive and not what you're not looking for. And you'll get more luck that way. And dog pics are highly recommended. Yes. So I think the hard part about online dating is starting the conversation. Like if you're out at a concert or you're out at a bar, it's a little easier to break the ice, and I think it can be really awkward, at least for me, to figure out what to say, and instead of like, hi, how are you, which is also fine, I think it could be cool to take information from a user's profile and turn that into a question. And so like I have something like, I'm very big into activism, and somebody asked me what causes I'm most dedicated to, and I thought that was a great question because they're paying attention, they're inquisitive, they're showing that they care, and so I think that a nice icebreaker like that can really be successful, and it's not just, hi, how are you, because then I'm going to answer, good, how are you, and then the conversation could just fall flat. And so I think if you want to have something where the conversation can keep flowing and ask questions about the other person, and these are two really good examples. All right, so safety is our biggest priority, and I think a lot of people's biggest priorities when dating, and especially online dating. But we also want to make sure that it's fun. But we have some safety tips for everyone, and the most important one is when you're meeting someone, please meet in a public space. It's really important that there are people around you, and sharing your location is highly recommended. There are too many scary stories out there, so let everyone know where you're going, and make sure that there are other eyes on you. Also, don't be afraid, and really do ask what the accessibility needs of your date. I know that it might be uncomfortable, but I think it is like a really nice thing to and kind thing to do and considerate thing to do. You would want someone to do that for yourself, and so I think it's completely appropriate and encouraged to do that. And make sure to pick a place and an activity that kind of conforms to your lifestyle. I will put Jacqueline on blast here. Years ago, she tells me she's going on a date, she's going paddle boarding in some remote lake. And I was like, are you like okay? Like you will be not okay the next day. Like you can't do that. And she was like, well, I don't want to tell him that I can't. He asked me and I don't want to like turn him down. And so she went, of course, it killed her the next day and she slept for like 2 days straight. But something, I think that's way before dateability, and now that you would have the courage to suggest another date. But I think it's, important to make sure that the person you're meeting feels comfortable with the activity, as do you.
Yeah, I always say, like, there's nothing sexier than asking someone about their accessibility needs. I think it is a unique question and one that really shows that you care and that you want someone to feel safe and comfortable. And then lastly, first dates can be awkward. I know from experience that there's nothing worse than that awkward silence that you get when you're like in between questions and you're like, what's your favorite color? And like, what was your dog's name growing up? And it just can be awkward. And so I really like the idea of bringing like this prompt question card game on our first date. And I personally haven't done that yet, but I know that the next date I do go on, I will bring that. But I've read from people's experiences on the internet that it works like a charm and people are really excited, and you might feel like awkward whipping out a card game at a first date, but it takes the pressure off both people. And so I'm sure your date will be relieved too. There are 2 examples, We're Not Really Strangers, and then Let's Get Deep, which are both available.
And I want to quickly talk about safety on the platform as well. This is a question we get a lot, and we got a lot about the issue of devotees. It's, I think, particularly apparent with people with physical and visible disabilities. So Jacqueline has never really encountered that before since all of her disabilities are invisible. But we take safety really seriously. Each profile has a report and block button. We review these multiple times a day, and we'll make the determination if the user needs to be kicked off the app. We have a pretty strict no tolerance policy. I think that we have had, I don't know if all of you have heard about us before, even though we're new, we've had a lot of press and we've put our story out for the world to see, and we're trying to gain that trust of our community. And I think that actually keeps the creepy people away because there's accountability. Like, we are behind the app, we're watching, we are on the app, and a surface level Google search will say that there are other dating apps for disabled people, but we downloaded all of them before we started this, and either they don't work or the people on there are very clearly predatory. And because there's nobody really behind the scenes checking, there's no one, they just tried to fill a void and hope for the best. And that's not the case with us. And so we haven't had any reports of devotees. We've been very lucky, knock on wood, and we allow users 18 and older to join. And then we also go through a safety tutorial on onboarding. It's tough to have to put the onus on the person dating to keep themselves safe. I wish the world was a better place, but unfortunately I think education is the best form of defense, and so we really want to keep our community safe, and it's something that's very important to us.
And like we mentioned at the beginning, we have success stories, and that's really what keeps us going. One of our first success stories is of a couple who met. They live about 1,000 miles away. They met a month after we launched, so there was literally probably like 1,000 people on the app to choose from, and they matched, and they're going to be coming up on their 2-year anniversary this year, and they're going to be celebrating it in their new home together. They are moving in together, and that's amazing. They are both chronically ill, and she is more homebound, and so she said that she's confident that she would have never met anyone or met her partner without the help of Dateability. So we're really excited about that.
And we have, our age range is really diverse. We have a success story. They're in their 60s now. The woman was injured in a bicycle accident at 55, spent 8 years trying to, adapt to her new reality. And her male partner now, who she met on Dateability, has Parkinson's. And she was having, they were talking online. First, she went on dates with people in her area. and from Dateability. She didn't feel a romantic connection with any of them, but it kind of helped get her feet wet into dating because she hadn't dated in almost a decade, and so she felt more comfortable. And then she met her now partner. They lived in 2 different states, but not that far apart from each other. And she was having back surgery, and he flew out and took care of her, and they've been together ever since. And he has Parkinson's, and she's physically disabled, but their abilities really complement each other. And so he's able to drive, and she's able to cook and help with the cleaning and things where his hands and his limited mobility come into play. And so, it's never too late to find love, and everyone is worthy and deserving of love, and Dateability is proof of that. And we would love for everyone to share Dateability's story with yourselves. Obviously, download it, but I know that everyone here probably knows someone else in the community who could benefit from an app like this. So please share Dateability, download it, and if you would be so kind, you could leave us a review in the App Store too, because that always helps encourage people to download the app. And we would love to take any questions anyone may have.
So I was a bit late arriving, but is this available all throughout North America?
That's a good question, yes. So we are available in North America, so US, Mexico, and Canada.
Sweet.
We are about to launch internationally for our 2-year anniversary, so sometime in the fall, September, October, November. And we'll be starting in the predominantly English-speaking countries first, so it can give us time to figure out the translation aspect of the tech. But yeah, we are available all over. It'll be Europe, Australia, New Zealand, so we're really excited for that.
And in terms of like sexual orientation and type of relationships?
Absolutely fully inclusive. We encourage all types of relationships, casual, monogamous, friendship. We will be launching our more filtering options in the summer and next month actually. And so people will be able to filter by, do they want a polyamorous relationship? And so we'll get a lot more specific next month. And 48% of our users identify as queer, so we're very LGBTQIA plus friendly. And I was going to say one more thing, but now it just escapes me. Oh, it's going to come back to me. Oh, we do have a looking for section on each profile, and they'll say monogamy, casual, friendship. Eventually, we do have plans to launch a purely platonic friendship platform that's separate and has that kind of algorithm. But right now we do have the looking for, and we know a lot of users who have met friends as well on Dateability.
More of a general online dating question. Do you find it better when you're writing your profile to talk more about yourself and who you are and what you're interested in as opposed to what you're looking for? Because people have said to me, yeah, just talk about yourself. That way, someone who's looking for you, well, that's the person that I want to meet because you have all these things that I'm looking for. So is it better to talk more about yourself as opposed to what you're looking for in a partner?
That's a good question, and one that I don't know if I really know the answer to. I'm so insanely specific that I think when I say what I'm looking for, you're actually learning a lot about me too. If it goes beyond the descriptors of being kind, compassionate. If you're I'm looking for somebody who, and it's really specific, I think that does say a lot about yourself. Because there's kind of a way to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. But what do you think? Yeah, well, you literally stole the words right out of my mouth. So I was going to say the same thing. But I think that you could really honestly even just split it up and do 2 and 2, 2 things that are specific about you. But I would say that most people, they don't give a lot of time on the dating app profiles. It's on to the next. And so my gut would say put more about yourself on there so that someone is oh, I'm attracted to that. Especially because I think that people don't necessarily they might have a hard time identifying with what you want. If someone's I want someone who's an activist and someone who will come to protest with me. Someone might not necessarily think about that of themselves, but once they meet you, they would be willing to do that. Are you giving me advice on my own dating profile? I am.
So my first question is, how many people are on this app? Because I feel like for some dating websites, you will match with somebody and they'll be, 3, 4 hours away. And especially in the day and age that we are in, people, if you have to wait a week, people will get bored. And like you said, move on to the next match who's closer and, who will be able to see them a little more. So how many people are on the app?
There are over 21,000 people. We keep growing. Back in October, we had 9,000. So just like 7 months ago, we doubled, more than doubled. Sometimes you might find, depending on where you live, people that are only 3 or 4 hours away from you because we're smaller. But there is less of it that people get bored and go on to the next. And I think that was part of the issue that Jacqueline was having is if she would disclose her disabilities early on, the people who were ableist and discriminatory would just be like, well, there's a million other Jacqueline 2.0s out there who aren't disabled, so I'm swiping to the next. And I think on Dateability, you know what kind of population and community you're encountering on the app, and you're not going to get bored, and you're not going to discriminate in that way.
Yeah. And I will say that we have success stories from people who are in the same city. One of our success stories is a couple who are they're both on the autism spectrum, and they matched and realized that they only live like 25 minutes away from each other, and they're approaching their 1-year anniversary, and they're traveling the country together right now. So it is possible. It just, if you're in a bigger city, you're more likely to have more people just because we are more popular in the metro areas. But I'd give it a shot.
And it's free, so you really have nothing to lose.
Yes.
I came in a few minutes late, so if you covered this already, I'm sorry. So is this strictly for people that either, view themselves disabled or chronically ill, or is it both, or how does that work?
It's open to everyone, and we thought a lot about that in the beginning, and we were like, okay, if we limit it to people who are disabled, I know I have friends who have type 1 diabetes, and they're like, am I chronically ill or not? They don't know where they fall, and they don't know if they're part of that community, and I don't really want to exclude people, like that. Come join. If you're gonna be respectful and be welcoming, we're happy to have you. And the other thing was, if we limited it to disabled people, how do we prove that? I personally am not going to, want a doctor's note from people. It's really hard to prove that. I mean, people have a hard enough time and have to go through hoops to get, government benefits or health care. And so we wanted to make it easy and truly accessible. So we welcome everybody. 10% of our user base is not disabled. And I think they're allies or they have personal connection. And since you missed the beginning, Jacqueline is disabled, I'm not disabled. We're sisters and we founded the app together.
Yeah, and I will say that we also have a large COVID conscious community, which has been an interesting market that we didn't expect. But so that group of people is very diverse, and some are disabled and some are not. And it's just a way for people to meet someone who is taking similar precautions. Well, if that's all, we really appreciate all of you taking the time to listen to us speak about our baby, Dateability, and we would just love to chat further if anyone wants to chat, and please share our mission.
Wonderful, thank you. Can I get this? Oh, thank you both so much. We really
Thank you.
appreciate the time, and for you just sharing your personal experiences, that really takes vulnerability, and we really appreciate that, and I think this is great discussion about kind of how to get back out there and how to feel confident.
Yeah.
Just want to share a couple more resources before we wrap up. We have the Ask IDF inbox on our website, so if you have any questions about this session or any of the other sessions that are happening over the conference, please don't hesitate to reach out to IDF through that Ask IDF. We're also happy to provide any other information unrelated to the conference. If you have questions about the community or anything like that, please don't hesitate to reach out through there. Also, it's great to have everyone connecting during the conference, but we also have our Get Connected groups that take place across the country. So really encourage you, if you haven't explored that yet, it's a really wonderful way to stay connected to other members of the community and also stay in touch with IDF and what we're doing in the community community as well. So we have them in a lot of different cities and states across the country, so I encourage you all to look at that. And then lastly, but most importantly, please, if you have the time after this session, go ahead and if you haven't added that to your schedule, add this session to your schedule and complete that survey. IDF is always trying to improve our sessions, improve our events, and make sure that we're serving the community the best we can, and your feedback is really invaluable to that. So any feedback, any input that you have about this session and some of the other sessions you've participated in, we really appreciate you taking the time, so thank you in advance for that. And with that, one more round of applause for our presenters here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.